Ah, ah, the golden days of gaming, where your only worry was finding a spare memory card and untangling those control wires. PlayStation 1 didn't just deliver the games we love now, it gave us unforgettable memories. It gave us iconic characters and worlds we couldn't wait to explore when we got home from school or when we got home from work. Today, we're diving into the top 10 PlayStation 1 games that still hit us with that nostalgic 1-2 punch and remain as fun to play now as they were back then. So, grab your PS1 controller and let's hit start on this journey back in time. Number 1, Crash Bandicoot. So, let's kick things off with the game that turned Naughty Dog into a household name. Crash Bandicoot was a game to behold. With its revolutionary graphics at the time, its platforming, challenging levels, and its quirky sense of humor made it an instant classic. However, whether you were dodging boulders, spinning through crates, or boarding nitro, this game produced fun every step of the way. And who could forget when you turned into a Koo and you got to run wild? What have I got? Number 2, Final Fantasy VII. A game that didn't just redefine RPGs, but redefined gaming itself. Cloud Stripe's battle against Sephiroth, combined with an unforgettable story and an iconic soundtrack, still resonates with a lot of gamers today. Hence why it got remastered. For many, this was their introduction to the emotional depth gaming could offer. Final Fantasy VII is almost solely responsible for putting JRPGs on the map. No one could have seen anything quite like it when it launched on the original PlayStation back in 1997. It's the second only to Gran Turismo in units sold, and for very good reason. The dark sci-fi storyline and incredible of the time's character design took a whimsical fantasy franchise and brought it to international audience in a way that neither Sony nor Square Enix could ever have imagined. It's a timeless classic that spawned the entire Final Fantasy universe of spin-offs and the stellar remake I told you about that absolutely deserves all of its praise despite some of its more glaring shortcomings. So, next up is number 3, Spyro the Dragon. It seems a silly question looking back at it now, but at the time there was a real debate over whether or not the PlayStation could actually do a 3D platform game. A proper one with big open stages, not the corridors and the caverns like Crash Bandicoot and Croc could do. Enter Spyro the Dragon, which was the emphatic answer to that question. Not only could the PlayStation do a 3D platform game, but it could do it very well indeed. It's not the hardest PlayStation game you'll play, but the locations are wonderful to explore and controlling Spyro feels great, so you enjoy breezing it through all the way to the end. Plus, with his character as well, it's quite endearing to him, and he can be a little bit cocky as a young dragon. What's not to love about Spyro? This purple little dragon soared through vibrant levels, collecting gems, freeing dragons, and roasting enemies, both figuratively and literally. Its cheerful world and addictive gameplay still make it a joy to play decades later. Next up is number 4, Metal Gear Solid. Stealth, story, and innovation. Metal Gear Solid had these in abundance and gained a reputation, and for good reason. It was a cinematic masterpiece that kept players on the edge of their seats. Who could ever forget hiding in a cardboard box? Or the legendary fight with Psycho Mantis? Metal Gear Solid offered a singularly unique blend of stealth action gameplay and coupled it with a wholly bizarre yet utterly delightful cast of characters, and a story that challenged our ideas of what a traditional video game hero was, and pushed at the boundaries of cinematic storytelling in video games at the time, and his legacy can be felt even to this day. All these exceptional elements, plus some truly unforgettable breaks in the fourth wall, combine to create a gaming experience that still holds up. as one of the best to this day within the Metal Gear series. And now, next up is number 5, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Now, this game made us all feel like skateboarding legends like Tony Hawk himself. With its iconic soundtrack, creative tricks, and free-flowing gameplay, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was, and still is, an adrenaline rush in digital form. It isn't just regarded by many as the most monumental game in the series, and it isn't just considered as one of the greatest sports games ever made. It is, without a doubt, one of the highest rated video games of all time, marrying exquisite arcade extreme sports with a soundtrack that launched 1 million mixtapes and more. The original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was one of the most influential and iconic games of its era, and number 2 added to that fact by adding more moves, a simple but wildly addictive skate park editor, and a sack full of searingly good songs that made this stunning sequel a refinement of the original, and also made it a whole lot better. So, next up is number 6, Resident Evil 2. If you're a fan of the survival horror series, you've probably been terrified by Resident Evil 2. If you were a kid, you weren't allowed to play it. If you're an adult, it probably scared you to death. With its atmospheric settings, unforgettable, scary moments, and intricate puzzles, it's no wonder this game became a genre-defining classic. Though it enjoyed a crack of a remake in 2018, the power of the original Resident Evil 2 is still untouched as one of the best Resident Evil games in the franchise. Set in a bizarro police station, an elaborate evolution of the first game's haunted house theme, Resident Evil 2 combined ornate, weird puzzles with a plethora of nasties that range from the garden variety zombies to more of the out there monstrosities like a giant moth and a sentient mutated poison ivy. So, throw in a hulking, seemingly invulnerable tyrant that relentlessly pursues you, and the ability to play through 2 different perspectives, and you got an all-time horror classic, all wrapped up in a game. Next up is number 7, Tekken 3. Fighting games reach a new height with Tekken 3. Its fluid combat system, rosters of diverse characters such as Hwoarang and Lei, and endless replay value made it a staple of every PlayStation 1 collection. Whether you are a butt master or a strategic fighter, Tekken 3 has something for everyone. The universally acclaimed Tekken 3 remains one of the most respected fighting games ever made, but it was its astonishing ability to lure even non-fighters that helped make Tekken 3 one of the most iconic games on the PS1. Adding the third act to the action, allowing players to dodge left and right, circling their opponents was a seismic shift for Namco's seminal Slugfest, a cocktail of wacky cinematics, eclectic characters, and bruising beatings. The King of Iron Fist Tournament 3 is the undisputed champ when it comes to the PS1 fighting games and will always remain up there with the very best in the business. It's definitely the reason an entire generation of gamers know what capoeira and thus button mashing is. Thanks a lot, Eddie Gordo. The Tekken series was the premier 3D fighting franchise on Sony's console from the moment it arrived, and it was the third installment, Tekken 3, which was the pinnacle of Namco's achievements within the series at that time. The core fighting action was refined, animations flowed naturally into one another, the counters were pretty solid as well, and the visuals were better thanks to the high-resolution models and the solid character models itself. That wasn't all though, as Tekken 3 had lots of things to do. There are plenty of unlockables, such as bizarre characters from Gone, to Ogre, to True Ogre, to odd modes like Tekken Ball, plus the scrolling beat-em-up Tekken Force game. So, next up is number 8, Gran Turismo 2. Back in the late 90s, it was hard to imagine how polyphonic digital could have improved upon the original Gran Turismo. I mean, the game was by far the biggest and most realistic racing game available on not only the PlayStation, but any console at that time, and players went wild for it. So how could they do even better? Enter Gran Turismo 2. The simple solution was to have more of everything. While the racing felt pretty similar, and the astounding graphics remained, Gran Turismo 2 featured more cars and more tracks to race on, including rally tracks, which introduced off-road competition to the series. There was so much content that the game had to be shipped with 2 discs. Talk about bang for your buck. So, the next one up is number 9, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This game introduced many of us to the term Metroidvania. Its stunning gothic visuals, intricate exploration, and rewarding gameplay made Symphony of the Night an all-time great. Releasing an old-looking 2D Castlevania on the PlayStation didn't seem like a good idea at the time, and it seemed like a strange move to some as well, given it was 1997. Even IGN original review reads, "It looks like the same old 2D platform action game as before." Other classic franchises already made the jump into the third dimension, so this game really stuck out by sticking in the second dimension. However, games like Tomb Raider were showing what the PS1 could do that previous consoles could not, but keeping Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2D allowed Konami to refine the gameplay to absolute perfection, and its beautiful pixel art has aged much better than most of its 3D contemporaries. The final one is number 10, Tomb Raider. When Tomb Raider launched back in 1996, it didn't just introduce us to Lara Croft, the sex symbol and the franchise player that we know today. It redefined the action-adventure genre. With its massive puzzle-filled environments, tense platforming, and cinematic storytelling, this game made players feel like true Tomb Raiders. Whether you're dodging traps in ancient ruins or gunning down ferocious enemies, like that dinosaur you just saw, the thrill of adventure still holds up today. The tank control might take some getting used to, but once you do, Tomb Raider remains a rewarding, nostalgic journey worth revisiting. So, if this list brought back any memories you had, or maybe gave you a reason to dust off your old PlayStation and maybe try to find some of the games listed here, hit that like button and share your favorite nostalgic games in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on more trips down memory lane. Until next time, everyone, game on.